Hello and welcome back to another Discovery review, where I have literally just finished the Picard review, haven't even moved the files from the camera onto my computer, and so go watch that review, after this, probably, unless you've already done it. Hello, if you're coming from the Picard review like me. This is getting confusing, but Species Tensi. I've been looking forward to this episode for quite a bit. The first contact episode that is either the first contact I've been waiting for ages now between the Tennessee and Discovery, which I think should be interesting, or discovering that Oros is behind the DMA and there is actually no Tennessee, or somewhere in the middle. Is Scooby-Doo an accurate prediction of Star Trek plots? Will I be satisfied with an ending? Can Star Trek even nail an ending in live action in the 21st century, now that they're actually planning them out? Should I turn off my Discord monitor before continuing? I can answer one of those questions. And now, let's see if democracy was right, and indeed it was worth starting with Picard. I didn't think I'd get to review this today, but I think I've got time before my roommate gets back. So, without further ado, I'm going to watch the episode, and let's see how they do. Please be good, please be good, please be good. Whew! This is how democracy dies, with thunderous applause. Y'all voted wrong. Idiots. Thank you for 3,000 subscribers. Yeah, screw Darmok. Darmok has been overrated anyway, in my opinion. This is the first contact mission I've always wanted. It arguably goes a little fast, for first contact, but it's other than that, it's perfect. It's the first contact. I'm loving it. The whole process is just makes sense. They always kind of get to the right thing the first time, but it's a beautiful first contact, thinking through problem solving. It's the word I'm looking for is Star Trek, which is beautiful. I'd even like to defend the speed they're going at, where I know citation needed, but you're watching an instant reaction video. I'm not going to have citations prepared. I'm familiar of studies where, they've mentioned in this episode, humanity's put together plans for communication and really basic stuff. We've done several. Voyager Golden Disc. I don't know if I think the Pioneer plaque had some stuff like that on it. The point is, we've also done studies of how could humanity actually decode messages like this. And I've heard of cases where they've built sort of fake alien messages and kind of presented them. But what's more interesting is I've seen them do it when it's absolutely meaningless, right? They've got math and stuff and some random puzzles in there, but there's absolutely no meaning to the messages whatsoever. And it's kind of a study of how could we actually recognize gibberish? And the answer is yes, incredibly quickly. The people who look at these messages and aren't told that they're gibberish, they're told this is an alien message, decode it. They very quickly realize that there is nothing to the message. If sentient societies build these incredibly simplistic models based off universal constants, one of humanity's favorites is the wavelength of a hydrogen. The most common type of hydrogen in the universe is a very common one humanity likes in our messages. And math, of course, we build these kind of structures. And if everyone does that, well, yeah, they're going to be different. But, if you're properly trained in this sort of thing, especially the Federation, who's done God knows how many stuff like this, all the species in the Federation, yeah, you'll probably get to the point where you can say DMA plus this is fear. It really does help that they know the words for some basic emotions. I think that would really help, because saying an emotion is very difficult, but the fact you can just go peace, here's peace, it's beautiful. And yeah, Darmok, it's going to be the episode you compare it to the most, probably. Darmok also had, actually the reverse, that I refused to accept the Federation sent 5 or 6 missions that couldn't understand a language that I got in the first sentence. So they're doing references to proper nouns. You're telling me 5 Starfleet crews could not do that in a century. But they also had the thing where, they were going pretty fast. Darmok's overrated. I like Darmok. It's a fun episode, but now that this is here, Darmok is just no. It's just not as good. There's just something beautiful about First Contact. It's why the movie First Contact is so beautiful. It's why Star Trek's May the 4th is First Contact Day. Infinitely better. Real holiday. It's just the two species. We probably don't have an example of two species more alien than this in Star Trek. It'd be hard to even conceive of one. But the fallback on the basic fundamentals of the universe, including the emotion, the empathy, the reaching out, just the both sides fumbling in the dark, not a clue what's going on, yet also trying to reach out, is beautiful. And seeing it work, I mean, the simple DMA plus isolinium equals question mark. Like, it's just enough to bring a tear to your eye. I mean, and it's sensical, because you can go, they cut away from the negotiations to Adira, Culber, those people finding out about Reno. And in that time, I'd already come up with, all right, so you want to say like DMA plus us is, I was going to say like maybe mix of fear, danger, terror works too. I don't have the list of emotions, but even the things I'm like, okay, so what's us? DMA is easy. We're given that. What is us? And I even thought, well, maybe like 5, the number of people there are. There were 4. Oh no, Cardassian flashbacks. But it's like, I like that. Well, carbon, it's like, that's not clear enough. The air, really clever. Like that association. I did like basically when they're like, these conversations, well, they're beautiful in their simplicity. The DMA plus isolinium is question mark. It's like, okay, DMA plus the atmosphere equals terror. Big sad. I'll say, we'll do some critiquing, fine. Greater than sad is a bit of a weird message when you think about it. Culturally, it is hard to do these communicates, but greater than sad, to me, I was like, okay, what's greater than sad? Is it like their need? Are they in danger? Like, no, we get your sad, but our need is greater. Right? I mean, that's kind of scientist guy Tarkin's thing, isn't it? I really hope it's Tarkin. I might have said like less than, or like sad greater than, like make the sadness the biggest thing, but it's DMA is less than sad. See, it's hard, but honestly, I get you kind of need the big finale, whatever, but honestly, I'd watch like a 10-hour supercut of just those negotiations. Like, that is the Star Trek I want. You got so many series, right? Once Discovery ends, once a show ends, give me the show that's just like that. It's just slow, dull. You don't even have to give it a budget, right? Give it TOS sets if you want. Just some slow, dull stars. Could you imagine, like, I mean, they've done this story, but like Star Trek First Contact, something like that, where we just, it's just that. It's beautiful. How did you guys vote for Picard? Really? How? This may be one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek, because First Contact is and always will be beautiful. And I mean, it's gonna go quick, the end, isn't it? Like, there's only 50 minutes left of Discovery. It feels like there's so much more to do. God, it's going to be first. I might actually just have to stay up to watch it and review it, because by God, it was good. I think their subplots line up really well. Saru and should really learn the name of Vulcan President. They just call her Madam President. I'm never going to learn that name. But they weave in the context of that cultural understanding and what's going on so well, without having it get in the way of what's actually going on, without having it be taking the time out of an incredibly dangerous situation. It's using theme is what I'm praising really well. Kind of laughed at a realization. The original series has what I like to call the pretty lady music. I think it's actually called Rose, the piece of music. I'm not quite sure. I think if you Google Star Trek the original series pretty lady music, it actually comes up. But when I'm watching the original series, right, I'm face blind, amongst many other things. It's also a really old show, so often when I'm watching it, they'll be talking and the camera will just kind of randomly be focusing on like some woman in the show. I'm like, why is the conversation stop? Why are we just looking for like, hang on, they're playing the pretty lady music. It's because this is a pretty lady, so we're supposed to appreciate it. It's very appreciated from the standpoint of a face-blind autistic person who would not know that the audience is supposed to get this is a gorgeous woman without that audio cue. And I don't know what it is. Is it my face blindness? Is it just taste? Is it shifting standards of beauty over the decades? I don't know. I don't care right now. But I realized Discovery has the model conversation music where, they're in the action and then they'll kind of start playing a certain type of music. I don't think it's the same song. I go, oh, okay, we're gonna open up, talk about our feelings, and have a perfect conversation. It's almost, after so many episodes, getting to the check my phone point. Part of it might be I'm doing these reviews. Like, it's a lot of it's really well done, and yeah, they're diversifying these perfect conversations, making them more interesting. Not always the same thing. And there's even ones where I went, oh, we're having a perfect conversation, open up about our feelings, and then they just kind of moved on. And there was the one with Stamets and Culber, where Paul's like, oh, what's up? And Culber's like, oh, it was nice being on the planet. I'm just kind of thinking how to get back to that. All right, see ya. And I was like, oh, wow. I thought we were going to have like a real deep conversation, but no. I suppose it's a nice example as well to kind of show being more casually open. Discovery really is kind of a how do you reach the utopia show. It's gotten good, and they'd have to really fumble to miss this ending. I think it's going to be a good ending. I think it's going to be the best Star Trek in at least 7 weeks. Is that when Strange New Worlds is? Speaking of which, I'll add it now because I know the views kind of drop off as we go on. Next week's Discovery will be a bit delayed. I mentioned this in the Picard review. Long story short, I'm taking the train Wednesday night, so can't watch it Wednesday night, but I also have my parents' potato internet, meaning it's going to take like a day to upload. So, and that's after I like watch, record, and edit it. So Thursday night, probably. I have to get up like super early Wednesday, so I probably won't watch it Wednesday night, but follow my Twitter if you really want to know. That's all I'll say here. You can tell I've liked this video this episode, because I've probably had to do very little cuts. I've just been talking so much, so constantly, not messing up, and it's just so. It's the new Darmok. I mean, it's amazing. Can I get to some critiques? Yeah. Book still has access codes to his ship, which is how they can communicate. Why is Book not using those access codes to? Maybe he can't cut out scientist guy, sure, but like do anything else? That's weird. A bit weird that Book would open up to Reno about the name Book. I think in season 3 that was a big thing, like, why Book? I'll tell you when you know me better, with Burnham or something. Now, that could be a sign of him just being a more open person. I like that. I like sort of a narrative change showing... It's how you show character development, especially in episodic stuff, where, like, they're kind of changing naturally. He's more open. He's not living in that post-Burn dystopia anymore. He's just more open about himself. Even when I'm trying to critique the show, I'm still praising it. So let's give you a pure critique. Are you telling me, on top of everything from last episode, Zora can't detect transmissions being made from inside Discovery? When the Earth Lady, again in the middle of crossroads of corridors, because there's no other set for her to use, I guess, she's just sending transmission and Zora doesn't know. Yeah, I guess you could argue it's part of the patch that was installed. They didn't know they were going to need to communicate when it was installed, but he's a smart enough guy. Maybe he'd add something like that. It's still, though, just like Zora should know. I found the actual bubble, the 10C bubble. Cannot remember what they call it. I keep forgetting. Weird that it was kind of like a structure, but also wibbly. I didn't... It was unexpected. But hey, maybe it's just showing it's super advanced or whatever. I did have a weird little thing where, they try and communicate, right? With a 10C. It didn't work. They send out the dots to go like peace, because they want to enter the bubble, right? And so something then comes and brings all the dots into the bubble. which is what they were going for. And that Discovery starts freaking out and trying to flee and like stop it as something tries to bring them into the bubble. But I'm like, wasn't this the express purpose? And they even seem to know it, because after the end credits, when the audience is already hooked, they kind of just drop it and are like, well, yeah, I mean, this is what we wanted, wasn't it? Like, let's just good. I think there is a question: is the DMA already shut off? Like, once they got, hey, DMA plus us is terror, did they just turn it off? I mean, I can see arguments for both ways, but it is interesting. Like, I wonder if that'll be addressed. I think they'll keep the 10C pretty enigmatic, and I doubt we'll ever see him again. But it's, God, I just want more of this. I'm starting to draw a lot of blanks and pauses in my memory, so I think I'm just gonna go the scene by scene. It'll jog my memory. I might talk more generally as it goes on, but also I don't want to have to stop abruptly because my roommate. So let's get in to the scene by scene. I did find this kind of weird, where Zora was saying, "Hey, I think there's something wrong," and Paul and Adira were like, "Okay, we'll talk to Culber after we launch all these dots," as if Zora has to be here and launch the dots. Like, isn't this Zora's therapy session? Can't she just go to Culber and explain what's going on? Like, why do Paul and Adira have to be involved at all? I didn't really get that. And in fact, if Zora did just go to Culber, this whole thing might have been resolved faster, and then we wouldn't be in this mess now. Oh, another thing, they keep mentioning, like, if the DMA blows up or whatever, it'll be a subspace thing that'll head towards Earth. Is Navarre just going to be fine? Because, like, I feel if it was going to be fine, that'd be brought up. Like, instead of losing 2 planets, you're losing 1 in a month instead of, like, what, like 3 days, was it? I mean, like, now 12 hours or something. Which, no, is not a sacrifice they should make, but you'd think it'd be a point that's brought up by either of them in their favor, especially Tarkin, the scientist guy. Like, just that excuse to do the bad thing and make it seem right. Make it about the math. It's weird Navarre is just kind of being ignored, especially by the aliens to both Earth and Navarre, Book, and Tarkin. I really enjoyed in this episode all the references to actual scientific things. I can never remember the name. The Karnoff scale? It's a scale he mentioned. They're level 2 on that scale, which I won't go into all of these, but it's like a spacey thing. How advanced is your civilization? And level 2 is extremely advanced. Humanity isn't even level 1 yet. It's like it's an extraordinarily advanced system. And there were other things. The actual UN protocols for establishing first contact, which I know exist. I know bits of them. I didn't know about the language thing he was talking about. I'm sure it exists. There was a lot. It's going to be hard to think of all the specific examples, but it was great to see, and it really helped feel like, even if this is the farthest point in Star Trek's history we've seen, ignoring that lower deck scene, is this felt like humanity's first contact. It's the first time we've actually had to try, and where it really made sense. Because Darmok we had to try, sure. But in Darmok, you also sent 5 incredibly highly trained starship crews who didn't realize, hey, these guys are using proper nouns. When I tell people about Discovery, I tell them seasons 1 and 2... Well, first off, I admit that there's a lot of variation. I've seen rankings for everything. I tell them season 1 and 2 are garbage. Season 2 being the worst season of television I've ever seen, except maybe Flux. But honestly, I don't feel like watching either to actually make that decision. But I tell them season 3 gets a lot better, but you do kind of have to get through 1 and 2, because season 3 continues a lot of stories. I will now tell them, I might even begrudgingly tell them that you could probably jump in with season 4, but I will tell them that season 4 is the reason you should stick through 1 and 2. Is it the best single season of Star Trek ever? Probably not, because late Deep Space Nine is why I call Deep Space Nine perfect. And I'd have to watch it in a binge and kind of see the good bits, the bad bits. But by God, is it up there? And is this plot line? Well, I guess kind of like the Xindi arc then. It's a plot line that I really respect, and especially ramps up at the end. And this may be my new favorite plot line in Star Trek. Ignoring maybe some really big things like the entirety of the Dominion War, I think this might be my favorite single plot line beyond the scope of like a single episode or two-parter. I genuinely am curious what, if any, they have to have had some first contact experts, which yes, that's a real thing. They've gone into so much research is done and so much has been done to get it right. I think a lot of that, or at least a big chunk, could be contributed to the pandemic years ago actually giving them the opportunity, like, we can only write scripts, let's make this a good one. But it's great. Discovery is also getting a lot better at using its cast, even if it's just the little ways, like making them there and giving lines, contributing. This scene, you just got Bryce, Nielsen, and Detmer. It's like, who's commanding the bridge now? That's a good question. But like, just Reno's a big part. Just throwing the characters in and having them do stuff, they're definitely getting a lot better at. And Burnham and Saru's relationship is great. I'm loving watching that. It just, please give me more Discovery. Do I really have to wait a week? I also liked they showed scientist guy. Again, I'm autistic. I don't do names. Like, he built in systems already so that he couldn't just be locked out of the computer, which was my big complaint from the last time is, Book, for God's sake, lock him out of the computer so he can't launch the isolytic weapon. Now, again, showing that Book still has command codes in his ship messes with that, but I'm glad they gave that excuse and it wasn't just, okay, I'll hit that button. Book tried to stop him, and yeah, it just been prepared for that. Oh, and Reno also gave the line when scientist guy was about to stun me, right? And that's how we got incapacitated Reno. Okay, I was gonna say how. He probably brought his own gun to Discovery. Do we see that? That might be worth double checking. I'd allow it then. Yeah, that makes more sense. Still not as good at all. In fact, I've just realized that Zora receives full biometric data from the crew. So the sequence of events is Tarkin stunned Reno, then took off her badge and hid it in engineering, which apparently Zora can't tell that Reno's under the floor. But you might say, okay, it's a privacy thing. I counter with, she's collecting full biometric data from the crew at all times. But like, between being stunned and having her badge removed, did Zora just not realize that a crew member had been shot by a phaser and was unconscious on the floor? I've just realized as well, the Federation ships for ages have been able to detect phaser fire. So are we sure that Zora's okay? This scene was a bit weird as well. I mean, I know people who will just like scream like that. When I used to work at McDonald's, certain people who shall not be named, when I did closing shifts, they would just like scream randomly. It was really annoying. It was very loud. Sometimes they just go in the freezer and do it anyway. But I'm like, I don't get it. I don't. There's never been a point in my life where I'm like, that would be helpful. That feels like it'd make things worse, if anything. Especially thinking about it coming from a woman who grew up on Navarre and like knows all those Vulcan emotional techniques. It's just a bit strange to me. So editing Nathan here, because I just have to interject. It's the week before finals week, the Friday, what's today? The Thursday before finals week. And I just had to go to a meeting where the RA, the person who runs my dorm, basically announced they were hosting a Scream thing where people just can go to the parking lot and scream. And I just had to bring that, I feel I had to bring that up. In the middle of editing this, I had to go to that meeting. For the first time in Star Trek, in an era where we know they have invented TARDISes, we have a TARDIS, not built by the Federation, but we do have a TARDIS. And yes, if you aren't versed in the classics, the Federation did have TARDIS technology as in bigger on the inside. I don't remember when. I think it might be like 20-something, 29th century, maybe 26th. I don't remember. The point is, I know it's before Discovery, the 31st century rather, and it just hasn't been brought up. Enterprise had it, a time capsule from the future. So an actual TARDIS, a time-traveling bigger on the inside, which maybe that's why they're not around anymore, because time travel technology is illegal, but I don't think the bigger on the inside makes you able to time travel. I think those are separate. TARDISes are cool. Just give us more. As much as I talk about how beautiful these scenes are, it will bring me endless joy to accept that it's probably the subtitle of this video, to accept that an accurate translation of this simplistic conversation is, why'd you blow up our DMA? We're terrified of the DMA. It's killing our people. Feels bad, man. Greater than sad. I'd translate that as feels bad, man. Is I will forever love that fact. And yeah, that's caught up then. So what have we learned today? We've learned that the public knows absolutely nothing when it comes to a vote, because this was clearly better. I got to watch them both. I'm happy I ended with this, to be fair. Maybe that's what you wanted. End on a high note. I got to watch these all the same day. That's really what I was most concerned about. You're getting Picard first, but I got to watch these both the same day, so I'm ultimately happy. You never get to vote again unless it's between two good shows, and I don't have a preference. But no, I did honor it because it was a very strong vote. 7-0 for Picard. Like, my polls, none of them have ever gotten that much engagement, and none of them have ever been so clear-cut. They're usually pretty, like, even. Oh, God, I mean, next week can't come soon enough, both because of this, and I'm very busy with school. But that was amazing. That was one of the best episodes of Star Trek we've ever had. And I can't wait to see more. I hope you join me for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.